What would you do if your entire life changed in just one day? What if a single person walked into your world and turned everything upside down? This is exactly what happened at Westridge High School, a place where the strong ruled and the weak suffered in silence. For years, this unwritten law had governed the halls, until one cloudy Monday morning when a black motorcycle roared into the parking lot. The engine cut off, and everyone turned to look. A slim figure in a worn leather jacket removed her helmet, revealing long dark hair that cascaded down her back. Her name was Maya Chen, half Chinese, half American, and her eyes held a story no one could read. As Maya walked toward the entrance, whispers followed her like shadows. Her confident stride and the mysterious scar above her right eyebrow made everyone wonder, who is this girl? Where did she come from? The principal, Mr. Harrison, had been waiting for her. "Miss Chen, welcome to Westridge. Your transcripts are unusual," he said, studying her file. 3 different schools in the past 2 years? Maya's gaze never wavered. "My father's job requires us to move often," she replied simply, but there was something in her voice that suggested there was more to the story than she was telling. As Mr. Harrison guided her through the crowded hallways, Maya observed everything, with the careful attention of someone who had learned to watch before acting. She noticed how students parted like the Red Sea for a group of athletes wearing varsity jackets. She saw a girl quickly hide her face behind her locker door when they passed. And she spotted him, a boy with sandy blonde hair sitting alone in a corner, sketching something in a worn notebook, completely invisible to everyone else. What Maya didn't know was that by the end of this day, her life would become intertwined with his in ways neither of them could imagine, and the careful mask she had worn for so long would crack open for the world to see what lay beneath. But first, she had to survive her introduction to the class. As she stood at the front of Ms. Peterson's English literature room, 30 pairs of eyes scrutinized her from head to toe. Maya felt her heart race, but her face remained calm, a skill she had mastered long ago. "Class, this is Maya Chen, our new student," Ms. Peterson announced with forced enthusiasm. "Maya, would you like to tell us something about yourself?" Maya took a deep breath. The next words she would speak would set everything in motion, triggering a chain of events that would change Westridge High forever. But little did anyone know, she had already identified the predators in the room, and they had no idea they had just met their match. "I'm Maya. I've lived in 6 different countries," she said quietly, "and I don't like bullies." The last sentence hung in the air like a challenge, and in the back of the room, Tyler James, captain of the wrestling team and self-appointed king of Westridge, exchanged knowing glances with his friends. They had just found their new target, but what nobody realized was that Maya had noticed this exchange. And she was already 3 steps ahead of them, because Maya Chen wasn't just an ordinary new student. She was someone with secrets that were about to explode in ways no one could predict. The cafeteria at Westridge High was a battlefield disguised as a dining hall. Every table represented territory, every seat a statement of social standing. Maya observed this complex ecosystem as she balanced her tray, searching for a place to sit. "New girl, over here," a friendly voice called out. It belonged to Amber, a cheerful girl from Maya's English class. For a moment, Maya considered the invitation, a chance at normalcy. But her attention was drawn to something else, a commotion at the far corner of the cafeteria. Tyler and his group had surrounded a thin boy with glasses, the same boy Maya had noticed earlier that morning, the invisible one with the sketchbook. He was desperately trying to gather scattered papers while Tyler held a notebook above his head, just out of reach. "What's the matter, Oliver? Can't reach your little drawings?" Tyler mocked, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. The cafeteria fell silent, students turning to watch the familiar scene unfold. "Please just give it back," Oliver whispered, his voice barely audible. "Or what?" Tyler's friend, Brad, shoved Oliver's shoulder. "What are you going to do about it, freak?" Maya set her tray down with deliberate calm. The sound of her approaching footsteps caused a few heads to turn. I believe he asked for his notebook back, Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Tyler looked at her with amused disbelief. Well, if it isn't the new girl. This doesn't concern you, sweetheart. I'm not your sweetheart, Maya replied, her eyes never leaving his, and I'm making it my concern. The cafeteria had gone completely silent now. Even the lunch ladies had stopped serving to watch. You should learn how things work around here before you get yourself in trouble, Tyler said, taking a step toward Maya. At 6'2", he towered over her 5'6" frame. Maya didn't flinch. And you should learn some manners before someone teaches them to you. A collective gasp rippled through the room. No one had ever spoken to Tyler like that. Last chance to walk away, Tyler warned, his smile gone. Funny, Maya replied. I was about to say the same thing to you. What happened next would be retold in whispered conversations throughout Westridge High for years to come. Tyler lunged forward, reaching for Maya's arm, a move meant to intimidate, not harm. But his hand never made contact. In one fluid motion, Maya sidestepped, grabbed his extended arm, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into an empty table. The sound of clattering trays and gasps filled the air. Tyler scrambled to his feet, his face red with fury and embarrassment. You're dead, he growled. Brad and two other boys moved to surround Maya. Her eyes darted between them, calculating, focused. She showed no fear, only a strange calmness that unnerved everyone watching. 4 against 1? Maya asked, raising an eyebrow. Seems about right for cowards. Brad charged first. Maya ducked under his swing, swept his legs from under him, and sent him tumbling to the floor with a precision that spoke of years of training. The other two hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Tyler, seeing his friends falter, charged again. This time, Maya met him head-on. Her movements were precise, economical, blocks and counters that seemed choreographed in their perfection. Within seconds, Tyler found himself pinned against the wall, his arm twisted behind his back, Maya's voice a quiet whisper in his ear. The notebook, she said simply. Let go of me, you psycho. Tyler spat, struggling against her grip. Maya applied just a touch more pressure, causing Tyler to wince. The notebook, she repeated. Now. With his free hand, Tyler reluctantly held out Oliver's sketchbook. Maya released him and took it, stepping back cautiously. The cafeteria remained frozen in shock. Maya turned to Oliver, who stared at her with wide eyes, fear, confusion, and something else swimming in their depths. She held out his notebook. I believe this is yours, she said softly. Their fingers brushed as he took it, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. Something passed between them, a recognition perhaps, two souls who understood what it meant to be different. The moment was shattered when Principal Harrison's voice boomed across the cafeteria. What is going on here? As teachers rushed in to restore order, Maya knew her carefully constructed anonymity had just been destroyed. But when she glanced at Oliver clutching his notebook to his chest, a small smile playing on his lips, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. What she didn't know was that this confrontation had set something much bigger in motion. Because Oliver wasn't the only one with secrets at Westridge High, and some secrets were dangerous enough to get people killed. Fighting on your first day? Principal Harrison's voice was heavy with disappointment as Maya sat across from his desk. I've called your father, he's on his way. Maya's stomach tightened. Her father would understand, but he would also worry, and they couldn't afford attention. Not now, not after everything they'd been through. They were bullying a student, she explained, her voice steady. 4 against 1. It wasn't right. Harrison sighed. While I appreciate your desire to help Miss Chen, we have procedures for reporting bullying. Taking matters into your own hands with whatever that was in the cafeteria is not acceptable. Before Maya could respond, the office door opened. The man who entered wasn't what anyone would expect from Maya's father. David Chen was tall and lean, with salt and pepper hair and a military posture that couldn't be hidden beneath his simple button-down shirt and jeans. His eyes, identical to Maya's, immediately assessed the room before focusing on his daughter. "Mr. Chen," Principal Harrison stood, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Of course," David replied, his accent slight but noticeable. "Maya, are you okay?" She nodded, the unspoken communication between them clear. No injuries. Situation contained. "Mr. Chen, your daughter assaulted 4 students today," Harrison began. "Self-defense," Maya corrected quietly. David's expression remained neutral. Perhaps we could hear the full story. After 20 minutes of explanation, witness statements, and a review of the cafeteria security footage, even Principal Harrison had to admit the situation wasn't as straightforward as it had initially seemed. "The other students will face disciplinary action for bullying," Harrison conceded. "But Maya, I still can't condone fighting. You'll serve detention for the rest of the week." As they left the office, Maya noticed Oliver waiting in the hallway, clutching his sketchbook like a shield. Her father noticed too, his trained eyes missing nothing. "I'll wait in the car," David said, giving Maya a knowing look before walking away. Oliver approached cautiously. "They're saying you're some kind of ninja," he said, a hint of a smile on his face. "Tyler's telling everyone you must have grown up in a secret monastery." Maya couldn't help but laugh. "Not exactly." "Thank you," Oliver said, suddenly serious. "No one's ever stood up for me before." "Maybe they should have," she replied. An awkward silence settled between them before Oliver spoke again. "How did you learn to fight like that?" Maya hesitated, years of caution making her wary of sharing too much. But something about Oliver's earnest eyes made her want to trust him. "My father taught me," she said simply. "Is he some kind of martial arts master?" Maya looked down the hallway where her father had disappeared. "He was Special Forces, Black Ops. We've lived all over the world, and not always in the safest places." Oliver's eyes widened. "Seriously, that's complicated," Maya finished for him. "We had to leave our last school because something happened." "Something like what happened today?" Maya's expression darkened. "Worse, much worse." The hallway had emptied now, leaving them alone with the echoing silence of the school after hours. Through the windows, rain had begun to fall, drumming against the glass like impatient fingers. "My dad's been training me since I was 7, Maya continued, surprising herself with how easily the truth flowed with Oliver. Self-defense, situational awareness, how to read people. It started as a game, but after my mom died when I was 10, it became more serious." "I'm sorry about your mom," Oliver said softly. Maya nodded, the familiar pain a dull ache now after years of carrying it. "After she was gone, it was just Dad and me. We moved a lot because of his work. I've learned to adapt, to blend in, to keep my head down." "You didn't keep your head down today," Oliver pointed out. "No," Maya admitted, "I didn't." "Why me?" Oliver asked suddenly. "Why risk everything to help someone you don't even know?" Maya was silent for a long moment. "Because I know what it's like to feel alone, to be the outsider. When I saw you this morning sitting by yourself, drawing in that notebook," she gestured to the sketchbook he still clutched. "I recognized something familiar." Oliver looked down at his worn sketchbook, then slowly opened it. "Would you like to see?" The page he turned to revealed an incredibly detailed sketch of the school courtyard. But unlike the real courtyard, Oliver's version was alive with hidden details. Small creatures hiding in shadows, magical elements woven into ordinary objects, beauty lurking beneath the mundane. "Oliver, this is amazing," Maya breathed, leaning closer. "I see things differently," he explained, his voice gaining confidence. "Always have. That's why they call me Freak." "They're idiots," Maya said firmly. Oliver smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. "So are you always going to be my bodyguard now?" "I don't think you need one," Maya replied. "You just need to believe in yourself." What Maya didn't say was how her father would react when he learned she'd revealed even this small part of their life to a stranger. How they might have to move again if she couldn't blend in. how she had broken her own cardinal rule on her very first day: stay invisible, because the truth was far more complicated than what she'd shared with Oliver. Her father hadn't just been special forces. He had been running from something for years, something dangerous enough to keep them constantly moving, constantly looking over their shoulders. And now, by standing up in that cafeteria, Maya had done the one thing they could never afford to do. She had drawn attention to herself. Attention that might reach far beyond the walls of Westridge High, to people who had been searching for David Chen and his daughter for a very long time. But as Maya looked at Oliver's grateful face, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Not yet. Not when, for the first time in years, she felt like she might have found a friend who could understand her. What she didn't know was that Oliver had secrets of his own. Secrets that would soon collide with hers in ways neither of them could imagine. The next morning, Maya arrived early to school, her father's warnings still ringing in her ears. "Keep your head down," he had said. "No more incidents." But as she walked through the nearly empty hallway, she knew it was already too late. Word had spread. Eyes followed her everywhere. She found herself wandering toward the art room, drawn by an inexplicable feeling. Through the door's narrow window, she spotted a familiar figure hunched over a drawing table. Oliver, alone in the classroom, completely absorbed in his work. Maya watched him for a moment. His hand moved with confidence across the paper, a stark contrast to his hesitant demeanor everywhere else. Here, in this room, he seemed different, more himself. She knocked softly before entering. Oliver looked up, startled, then relaxed when he saw her. "You're here early," Maya said, walking toward his table. "I'm always here early," Oliver replied. "Mister, Brooks lets me use the art room before classes. It's quiet." Maya glanced down at what he was working on, a striking portrait that made her breath catch. It was her, from yesterday in the cafeteria, caught in the moment she confronted Tyler. But there was something ethereal about how he'd drawn her, a strength emanating from within, almost like an aura. "Is that how you see me?" she asked quietly. Oliver blushed, quickly trying to cover the drawing. "I'm sorry. I should have asked before." "No!" Maya interrupted, touching his hand to stop him. "It's beautiful. I've just never seen myself like that." Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. Maya felt a strange flutter in her chest, something unfamiliar and alarming in its intensity. "Yesterday you said you see things differently," Maya said, breaking the silence. "What did you mean?" Oliver hesitated, then pushed his glasses up nervously. "You shared something with me yesterday, something personal. Maybe it's fair if I do the same." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a leather-bound sketchbook, different from the one she'd seen before. "I've never shown this to anyone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "not even my parents." The pages Oliver revealed were unlike anything Maya had ever seen. Intricate drawings of people, students and teachers from Westridge, but each portrait showed something beneath the surface. The school's beloved math teacher appeared hollow behind the eyes, with shadowy tendrils extending from her chest. The cheerleading captain's beautiful face was half transformed into something predatory. And Tyler's portrait showed something dark and wounded at his core, surrounded by chains of his own making. I started seeing these auras, I guess you could call them, when I was 9. Oliver explained, his voice gaining confidence as he spoke about his art. "After the accident." "What accident?" Maya asked. "Car crash. I was in a coma for 3 weeks." Oliver's fingers absently traced a scar, partially hidden by his hairline. "When I woke up, everything was different. I could see things about people, who they really were beneath their masks. No one believed me, of course. They said it was trauma, hallucinations. Eventually, I stopped talking about it and started drawing instead." Maya carefully turned the pages, stopping when she found her father's portrait. Oliver had only glimpsed him briefly, but he'd captured David Chen with uncanny accuracy, a protective force surrounding him, but also a darkness, a weight of secrets. "Is this why they bully you?" Maya asked. They sense you can see through them. Oliver shook his head. They bully me because I'm different, quiet, easy target. They don't know about this. He turned to the last page in the sketchbook, a self-portrait. Unlike the others, Oliver had drawn himself as almost transparent, barely visible except for his eyes, which burned with an intense light. The invisible boy, Maya murmured. That's how I've always felt, Oliver admitted. Invisible, except when they need someone to torment. Maya studied him carefully. But you're not invisible to me. Something passed between them then. An understanding, a connection that transcended words. Two outsiders who saw the world differently, who carried secrets too heavy for their young shoulders. The moment was interrupted by the sudden chime of the warning bell. Students would be flooding the halls any minute. We should go, Oliver said, quickly packing away his sketchbooks. As they walked together toward their first class, Maya noticed the stares, the whispers. News of yesterday's fight had transformed her overnight into a school legend. Oliver, walking beside her, seemed to shrink from the attention. You don't have to be seen with me, he said quietly. It'll just make things harder for you. Maya's response was to loop her arm through his, a deliberate choice. I'm exactly where I want to be. The day progressed with a strange new dynamic. Maya's reputation as someone not to be crossed created an invisible barrier around her, and by extension, around Oliver. For the first time in years, he walked the halls without fearing a shove or a taunt. Tyler and his friends kept their distance, nursing both physical and emotional bruises. During lunch, they sat together at an empty table, comparing class schedules and discovering shared interests in obscure books and foreign films, the result of Maya's nomadic upbringing and Oliver's isolated existence. So, what does your dad think about yesterday? Oliver asked between bites of his sandwich. Maya's expression darkened. He's worried. We have a complicated history. Being noticed is dangerous for us. Dangerous how? Before Maya could answer, a sharp pain shot through her temple, so sudden and intense that she gasped, dropping her fork with a clatter. Images flashed before her eyes. Her father's panicked face, dark vehicles, men in suits entering their apartment. Maya? Are you okay? Oliver's concerned voice seemed to come from far away. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Maya disoriented and filled with dread. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I need to call my dad, she said, her voice tight with fear as she fumbled for her phone. What is it? What happened? Oliver asked, alarmed by the sudden change. Maya's hands trembled as she dialed, the phone going straight to voicemail. They found us. She whispered, more to herself than to Oliver. Who found you? Maya, you're scaring me. She looked at him then, really looked at him, her decision made in an instant. Oliver had trusted her with his secret. Now she would trust him with hers, because she suddenly realized she might need his help. Remember how I said my dad was special forces? Maya said, her voice low and urgent. What I didn't tell you is that he uncovered something 5 years ago, something powerful people wanted to keep hidden. We've been running ever since. Oliver's eyes widened as the implications dawned on him. And you think they've found you again? Here? Now? Maya nodded, the certainty growing stronger by the second. I need to go home. Now. I'm coming with you, Oliver said, with a determination that surprised them both. As they rushed from the cafeteria, neither noticed the sleek black car pulling into the school parking lot, nor the two men in dark suits who stepped out, showing identification to the security guard at the entrance. What Maya couldn't know was that her decision to bring Oliver into her world would change both their lives forever. Because while she had secrets that could put them in danger, Oliver had something else. Something hidden within his unique perception that might be their only chance at survival against what was coming. They slipped out through a rarely used side exit, cutting across the soccer field to avoid being seen from the main office. Maya moved with purpose, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings with a vigilance that Oliver had only seen in thriller movies. "My house is about a mile from here," she said, breaking into a jog once they reached the cover of trees at the school's perimeter. "We need to get there before they do, if they haven't already." Oliver struggled to keep up, his breath coming in short gasps. "Maya, wait, who exactly are they?" She slowed just enough to answer without stopping. "My father worked for a private military contractor. During a mission in Eastern Europe, he discovered evidence that his employers were selling classified weapons technology to foreign governments. When he threatened to expose them, we became targets. So you've been running from a private military company for 5 years?" The disbelief in Oliver's voice was evident. "Aegis Security Solutions," Maya confirmed. "They have connections everywhere: government, law enforcement, intelligence agencies. We've had 7 different identities in 5 years." They emerged from the woods into a quiet suburban neighborhood. Maya led them through a series of shortcuts between houses, always staying away from main streets and security cameras. "How did you know?" Oliver asked as they ducked behind a hedge. "Back in the cafeteria, you just suddenly knew something was wrong." Maya hesitated. "It's happened before, like a warning system. Dad calls it hyper-awareness, says some soldiers develop it in combat zones, but lately it's been getting stronger, more like premonitions." Oliver stopped abruptly, causing Maya to turn back in frustration. "What are you doing? We need to keep moving." "Maya," Oliver said, his voice suddenly steady, "I think I know what's happening to you. This isn't the time for... It's like what happened to me after my accident," he insisted. "These abilities, they're real. I can see people's true natures. You can sense danger before it happens. What if they're connected?" Maya stared at him, torn between urgency and curiosity. "Connected how?" "I don't know, but..." Oliver's words were cut short by the sound of a car engine, slow and deliberate, coming down the street toward them. Without thinking, Maya pulled Oliver behind a large oak tree, pressing them both against its trunk as a black SUV cruised past. Through the gaps in the leaves, she caught a glimpse of the driver, sunglasses, earpiece, military haircut. "That's them," she whispered. "Aegis." The SUV continued down the street, toward her house, Maya realized with growing dread. "They'll have the house surrounded," she said, more to herself than to Oliver. "Standard protocol. Dad would have gone to ground immediately. Emergency Protocol C." "What's Protocol C?" "Separate extraction points. Mine is the boathouse at Westridge Lake." Oliver's eyes widened. "My family has a cabin there. It's only 15 minutes if we cut through Miller's Woods." For the first time since the vision in the cafeteria, Maya felt a flicker of hope. "Lead the way." As they navigated through the dense woods, Maya explained more about her life on the run. The constant training, the contingency plans, the codes and signals she and her father had developed. Oliver listened, occasionally stopping to correct their course through the increasingly thick forest. "Why are you helping me?" Maya asked suddenly. "You barely know me. This could be dangerous." Oliver was quiet for a moment before answering. "All my life, I've been watching from the sidelines, seeing things others don't, but never doing anything about it. Yesterday you were brave when no one else was. Maybe it's time I stopped being invisible." They reached a small clearing, and Oliver pointed to a narrow path barely visible among the underbrush. "That leads directly to the lake. It's an old game trail. No one knows about it except me." As they followed the path, Maya felt another sharp pain in her temple, milder this time, but accompanied by a clear image of men with dogs entering the woods from the opposite direction. "They're tracking us," she said, grabbing Oliver's arm. "We need to move faster." Oliver's face paled, but he nodded resolutely. "There's something I need to tell you. About my drawings, about what I see. Can it wait until we're safe?" "No, because it might be important now." Oliver's voice took on an urgency she hadn't heard before. "When I draw people, I don't just see their auras or true nature. Sometimes I see possibilities, futures that might happen." Maya stared at him. "You're saying you can see the future?" "Not exactly. More like potential outcomes, branches in time." He swallowed hard. Last night after meeting your father, I drew something, a drawing of you and me at the lake house. But there were men there too, waiting. The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. And you're just telling me this now? I didn't know what it meant, Oliver protested. I have dozens of drawings that never come true, but now... Their argument was cut short by the distant sound of barking dogs. We need another plan, Maya said, her mind racing. If they're waiting at the lake house... My drawing showed them at the main dock, Oliver interrupted. But there's another way in. The cabin has a hidden cellar entrance from the waterside. My grandfather built it for storing his fishing gear, but it connects to the house. Maya's training kicked in, evaluating options, calculating risks. How good a swimmer are you? Good enough, Oliver replied with newfound determination. They reached the edge of the lake 20 minutes later, the water dark and still in the afternoon light. The main boathouse was visible on the opposite shore, but Oliver pointed to a small wooden structure half hidden among weeping willows about 100 yards around the curve of the shoreline. That's our cabin, he whispered. We'll need to swim the last part underwater to reach the cellar entrance. Maya nodded, already removing her jacket and shoes. We'll have about 30 seconds of air. Think you can make it? Oliver removed his glasses, carefully tucking them into his shirt pocket before zipping it closed. Without them, his face looked different, vulnerable, yet somehow stronger. I've been invisible my whole life, Maya, he said, with quiet resolve. Time to become the person I've been drawing. As they waded into the cold water, Maya felt something shift between them, a bond forming in shared danger, in mutual trust. When Oliver reached for her hand beneath the surface, she took it without hesitation. They submerged together, swimming toward the shadow of the cabin, toward an uncertain future that somehow seemed less frightening because they were facing it together. Inside the cabin, they found it empty but with signs of recent use. A coffee mug still warm, papers hastily gathered. On the table was a single playing card, the Queen of Hearts, with a series of numbers written on the back. It's from my dad, Maya said, relief washing over her. It's a meeting point and time. He's alive. Oliver wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, their wet clothes leaving puddles on the wooden floor. What do we do now? We wait until dark, then... Maya stopped mid-sentence, her head tilting as if listening. Then she smiled, the first genuine smile Oliver had seen from her. We don't have to wait, he's here. The door opened slowly and David Chen entered, his eyes instantly finding his daughter. The emotion on his face was raw and powerful, relief, love, fear, before his training reasserted itself and he quickly secured the door behind him. Maya, he breathed, crossing the room to embrace her. Thank God. Only then did he notice Oliver, standing awkwardly to the side, still dripping from their underwater journey. Dad, this is Oliver, Maya said. He saved my life today. David's eyes narrowed slightly as he assessed the boy. Did he now? Sir, Oliver began, finding courage he didn't know he possessed. I know about Aegis. I want to help. David Chen studied Oliver for a long moment, then looked back at his daughter. Something passed between them, an unspoken communication born of years surviving together. Maya trusts you, David finally said. That's enough for now. As night fell, and they gathered around the table making plans, Maya observed the strange new dynamic forming. Her father, the hardened operative, listening intently as Oliver explained his drawings, his visions. Oliver, the invisible boy, suddenly visible and vital. And herself, no longer just running, but perhaps finally ready to stand and fight. What none of them could have anticipated was how their unique abilities would soon be tested. Because Aegis wasn't just hunting them for what David Chen knew, they were hunting them for what Maya and Oliver were becoming. Something unprecedented, something that powerful people would kill to control. 3 days later, Maya walked through the front doors of Westridge High with Oliver by her side. Students turned to stare, whispers following them like shadows. But something had changed. not just in the way others saw them, but in the way they carried themselves. "Are you sure about this?" Oliver asked quietly. "We could still leave town with your dad." Maya shook her head, determination in her eyes. "Running hasn't solved anything. Dad's taking the evidence to his contact at the Justice Department today. We need to be normal teenagers until we hear from him." "Normal!" The word almost made Oliver laugh. Nothing had been normal since Maya Chen had walked into his life 4 days ago. In that time, he'd helped her evade professional mercenaries, discovered her father was a whistleblower with evidence against one of the most powerful private military companies in the world, and realized that his own artistic visions might be something far more significant. Most surprisingly, he'd learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. As they approached Maya's locker, they found Tyler and his friends waiting. Maya tensed, ready for confrontation, but something in Tyler's demeanor was different, less aggressive, more uncertain. "Chen," Tyler acknowledged with a nod. "Got a minute?" Maya exchanged a glance with Oliver before responding. "I'm listening." Tyler shifted uncomfortably, clearly struggling with whatever he'd come to say. "Look, about what happened, I've been a jerk." "That's an understatement," Oliver murmured, surprising himself with his boldness. Tyler's eyes flicked to Oliver, but instead of the usual contempt, there was something like respect. "Yeah, it is. That's why I wanted to say, I'm sorry, to both of you." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Maya studied him carefully, remembering how Oliver had drawn him, darkness surrounded by chains of his own making. "What changed?" she asked. Tyler looked down, suddenly finding the floor fascinating. "My dad's a cop. Last night he got called to check out a disturbance at the lake. When he came home, he was shaken up. Said he'd seen some guys with military-grade weapons who flashed government IDs but felt wrong." Maya kept her expression neutral, but her heartbeat quickened. "He said they were looking for a Chinese-American man and his teenage daughter," Tyler continued. "Asked if he'd seen anything suspicious. Dad's got good instincts. Said these guys weren't who they claimed to be." "Why are you telling us this?" Oliver asked, though he suspected he already knew. Tyler met his eyes directly. "Because they showed him a photo of Maya, and they're coming here, to the school, today." The warning sent ice through Maya's veins. "How much time do we have?" "They told the administration they'd be here for a safety inspection at noon. It's some Homeland Security bullshit cover." Tyler looked genuinely concerned now. "My dad said to be careful, that these guys are dangerous. I figured after what happened in the cafeteria, well, I owed you one." Before Maya could respond, the warning bell rang. Students began hurrying to class, the hallway quickly emptying. "Thanks for the warning," Maya said quietly. Tyler nodded, then hesitated. "Whatever trouble you're in, Chen, I hope you make it out okay." With that, he turned and walked away, his friends following after exchanging awkward nods with Maya and Oliver. Once they were alone in the hallway, Oliver turned to Maya. "We need to leave. Now." "No," Maya said, her mind racing. "If we run, they'll just keep hunting us. Dad needs more time to reach his contact." "So what's the plan?" A slow smile spread across Maya's face, the same expression she'd worn just before confronting Tyler in the cafeteria. "We're going to hide in plain sight, and we're going to need help." Over the next hour, through whispered conversations between classes, Maya and Oliver set their plan in motion. Amber from English class, Raj from computer science, even Tyler and his friends. One by one, they shared carefully selected pieces of the truth. Enough to gain allies, not enough to put anyone in danger. By fourth period, a network had formed throughout Westridge High. Students passing notes, creating diversions, serving as lookouts. The outcasts and the popular, the athletes and the academics, united by a common purpose that transcended their usual social boundaries. Maya observed this transformation with wonder. The same school that had been a battlefield of social hierarchies just days ago was now operating with the coordinated precision of a resistance movement. At 11:45, Raj sent a mass text to their newly formed network. Eagles have landed. 3 suits, main entrance. Oliver found Maya in the library, his eyes wide with both fear and excitement. They're here. Security just escorted them to the principal's office. Maya nodded, surprisingly calm. Phase 1 then. Across the school, their plan sprang into action. The fire alarm blared, triggered by a freshman chess club member who'd been bullied relentlessly until Maya had stood up to his tormentors. As students poured into hallways, accidental collisions created chaos. Water bottles spilled on the men in suits. A girl tripped, causing one agent to drop his tablet, which was quickly kicked under a row of lockers in the confusion. Through it all, Maya and Oliver moved purposefully toward the east exit, guided by text updates from their improvised surveillance network. "Why are you doing this?" Maya asked a cheerleader who was deliberately blocking a corridor to delay one of the agents. "You don't even know me," the girl smiled. "Because Oliver helped me with my art project last semester when everyone else was too busy, and because it's about time somebody stood up to the bad guys around here." In the chaos of the evacuation, Maya and Oliver slipped away to the art room, the one place in the school with no windows and only one entrance, easily monitored by their growing network of allies. "I can't believe this is working," Oliver said as they barricaded the door. "I can't believe they're all helping us." "People want to be part of something bigger than themselves," Maya replied. "They want to matter." Oliver looked at her with newfound understanding. "Is that why you did it, that first day in the cafeteria, to be part of something bigger?" Maya considered the question. "I did it because it was right, just like all of them are doing now." Their moment of reflection was interrupted by a text from Tyler. "They're searching room by room, 10 minutes out from your position." Maya took a deep breath. Time for phase 2. While Oliver kept watch at the door, Maya called her father. "We're compromised," she said the moment he answered. "Aegis is at the school." David Chen's voice was tight with controlled panic. "I'm 20 minutes from the Justice Department contact. Can you hold out?" "We have help," Maya assured him. "Just make sure your evidence gets to the right people." "Maya," her father said, his voice softening, "I'm proud of you." She swallowed the sudden lump in her throat. "See you soon, Dad." As she ended the call, Oliver touched her arm. "They're coming." Multiple footsteps. Maya nodded and moved to the center of the art room. "Time to stop running." The door burst open despite the barricade, revealing 2 men in dark suits flanking a woman whose expression was coldly professional. None of them displayed weapons, but their stance made it clear they were armed. "Maya Chen," the woman said, "you've led us on quite a chase." "Sorry to disappoint you," Maya replied calmly, "but you're not taking me anywhere." The woman smiled without warmth. "Your father stole classified information. We're simply bringing you in for your own protection until this misunderstanding is resolved." "By sending armed men to a high school?" Oliver challenged, standing firmly beside Maya. "That doesn't sound like protection to me." The woman's eyes flicked to Oliver with mild interest. "This doesn't concern you, young man." "Actually," came a voice from the doorway, "it concerns all of us." Tyler stood there, flanked by what seemed like half the student body. Behind them, teachers had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion and the unusual presence of strangers in the school. "What is this?" one of the suited men demanded. "This," said Principal Harrison, pushing through the crowd of students, "is me wondering why 3 individuals claiming to be from Homeland Security are threatening my students without any documentation or prior authorization." The woman from Aegis maintained her composure. "If we could speak privately." "I've already called the actual Department of Homeland Security," Harrison interrupted, "along with the police. They seemed very interested to hear about unauthorized individuals impersonating federal agents on school grounds." The 3 Aegis agents exchanged glances, tension evident in their posture. One reached inside his jacket, but froze when he realized dozens of cell phones were recording. In that moment, Maya's phone vibrated with a text. "It's done. Evidence delivered." Federal agents en route to Aegis headquarters. Stay safe. Dad. Maya looked up, meeting the woman's gaze with newfound confidence. It's over, she said quietly. The evidence is with the Justice Department. By this time tomorrow, Aegis will be under federal investigation. The woman's composure finally cracked, her eyes widening with the realization that they had lost. Without another word, she signaled to her colleagues, and they began backing toward the door. This isn't over, she warned. Actually, said a uniformed police officer who had just arrived at the doorway, Tyler's father standing beside him. I think it is. As the Aegis agents were escorted from the building, a cheer erupted from the gathered students. Maya found herself at the center of a celebration that transcended the usual cliques and divisions of high school life. In the midst of the commotion, Oliver found her hand and squeezed it gently. When she turned to him, he was smiling. Not the hesitant smile of the invisible boy, but the confident smile of someone who had found his place in the world. So, he said, what happens now? Maya looked around at the transformed school, at Tyler talking animatedly with Raj, at cheerleaders and band members sharing excited recountings of their roles in the day's events, at teachers who were looking at their students with newfound respect. Now, Maya said, we stop running, we stop hiding who we really are. She turned back to Oliver, suddenly aware that they were still holding hands. Neither made any move to let go. My dad's evidence will protect us now, she continued. We can stay in one place, make real friends, maybe even have normal lives. Normal? Oliver raised an eyebrow. After everything that's happened? After what we've discovered about ourselves? Maya laughed, a free, genuine sound that few had heard from her before. Okay, maybe not normal, but real. Authentic. The crowd around them had begun to disperse, students and teachers returning to classrooms, the day's routine somehow forever changed by what they had all experienced together. In the relative quiet that followed, Oliver gently pulled Maya closer. There's something I never showed you, a drawing I made the night before you arrived at Westridge. From his ever-present sketchbook, he withdrew a folded page. Maya opened it to find a portrait of herself, not as she had been that first day, but as she was now. Confident, unafraid, her eyes filled with purpose and hope. Beside her in the drawing was Oliver, standing tall, no longer invisible. You drew this before we met? Maya whispered, her fingers tracing the lines of the portrait. Oliver nodded. I never understood my visions until now. I wasn't just seeing people as they are, I was seeing who they could become, who we could help each other become. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of a school day unlike any other, Maya Chen, daughter of a whistleblower, trained fighter, and now perhaps hero, did something she'd never planned or trained for. She leaned forward and kissed Oliver gently on the lips. When they parted, both smiling shyly, the art room was empty except for them. Two extraordinary teenagers who had found each other against impossible odds. So, Oliver said, his voice soft with wonder, what do we do tomorrow? Maya's answer was simple. Whatever we want, together. In the days that followed, the story of how Westridge High had united to protect two of their own spread throughout the town. David Chen's evidence led to federal indictments against Aegis executives. The school that had once been divided by strict social hierarchies gradually transformed into a community where standing up for others became the new measure of status. And at the center of it all, an unlikely pair, the warrior and the artist, the visible and the invisible, discovered that sometimes the greatest power comes not from extraordinary abilities, but from the courage to be exactly who you are and to fight for what's right, no matter the cost. Sometimes the most profound transformations begin with the simplest of choices, like standing up for someone on your first day of school or falling in love with the person who sees the real you when everyone else looks right through. Because in the end, isn't that what we all want? To be seen, to matter, to change the world, even if it's just the small corner of it that we call home. 1 month later, spring had fully arrived at Westridge High. The once rigid social hierarchy had dissolved into something more fluid and inclusive. Students who had never spoken to each other before were now friends, united by their shared experience of standing against a common enemy. The story had made national headlines. High school students thwart corporate conspiracy. Most of the details remained classified as the federal investigation into Aegis continued, but the students of Westridge wore their involvement like a badge of honor. They had been part of something important, something that mattered. Maya and Oliver sat beneath an oak tree in the courtyard during lunch, surrounded by a diverse group that would have been unimaginable just weeks ago. Tyler, once the school's feared bully, was enthusiastically explaining a new anti-bullying initiative he was developing with Principal Harrison. The younger kids need mentors, he was saying, someone to show them they don't have to establish dominance to be respected. Maya caught Oliver's eye, and they shared a private smile at Tyler's transformation. Of all the changes at Westridge, his was perhaps the most profound. My dad says the Justice Department is building a solid case, Maya shared quietly with Oliver as the others continued their conversation. He's testifying before a closed Senate committee next week. Is he nervous? Oliver asked, his hand finding hers in the grass between them, a gesture that now felt as natural as breathing. Relieved mostly, after 5 years of running, he finally gets to tell the truth. Maya leaned against Oliver's shoulder. He's thinking about taking a teaching position at the community college. Military history. And you're really staying? There was still a hint of disbelief in Oliver's voice, as though he feared this new reality might dissolve if he examined it too closely. Maya squeezed his hand. We're staying. Dad says it's time to build a life instead of an escape plan. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As their friends gathered their things and headed toward the building, Maya and Oliver lingered beneath the tree. I have something for you, Oliver said, reaching into his backpack. He withdrew a small canvas, wrapped carefully in cloth. Maya unwrapped it to find a painting unlike any of Oliver's previous work. It showed 2 figures standing on a cliff edge, facing a sunrise. Their features were indistinct, but their postures conveyed strength and hope. Behind them, barely visible in the shadows, were the outlines of many others, an entire community standing together. It's beautiful, Maya whispered. I've been thinking about what happened, Oliver said, about why my visions led me to you, why your intuition connected you to me. What if we were meant to find each other? What if there are others out there like us, people with gifts they don't understand? Maya considered this. You think we could help them? I think we already have. Oliver gestured toward the school, where students were filtering into classrooms. We showed everyone here that standing together makes us stronger than standing alone. As they walked hand in hand toward the building, Maya reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with her first day at Westridge High. She had arrived planning to be invisible, to blend in until the next inevitable move. Instead, she had found her voice, her strength, and someone who truly saw her for who she was. That evening, as Maya and her father prepared dinner in their small apartment, no longer a temporary safe house, but a home they were gradually filling with personal touches, David Chen watched his daughter with quiet amazement. You know, he said, as she chopped vegetables with the same precision he had taught her for self-defense, when I first uncovered the truth about Aegis, I thought I was protecting you by keeping us on the move. Maya looked up, hearing the rare vulnerability in her father's voice. But you were the one who figured out that running wasn't the answer, he continued. Standing your ground, building connections, trusting others, that was the real solution. You've become so much more than I taught you to be. Maya set down her knife and hugged her father tightly. You taught me the most important thing, to fight for what's right no matter how hard it seems. Later that night, Maya stood at her bedroom window looking out at the stars. Her phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Working on a new drawing. Something's coming, but this time we're ready. She smiled. no longer afraid of whatever challenges might lie ahead. For the first time in years, she wasn't facing the future alone. At school the next day, a new student arrived, a quiet girl with wary eyes that reminded Maya of herself just weeks earlier. Without hesitation, Maya approached her in the hallway. "I'm Maya," she said, holding out her hand. "First day can be tough. Want someone to show you around?" The relief on the girl's face was immediate and profound. As Maya introduced her to Oliver and their friends, she felt a strange resonance, a connection she couldn't quite explain, but somehow recognized. Later, when Oliver sketched the new student, he showed Maya the result with raised eyebrows. Around the girl's figure was an aura he had never depicted before, something unique, powerful, and untamed. "I think we found another one," he whispered. Maya nodded, understanding immediately. "Then we'll help her discover who she really is, just like we did." As spring turned to summer, the legend of what had happened at Westridge High began to spread beyond their small town. Other schools adopted their model of inclusion and mutual support. David Chen's testimony led to major reforms in private military contractor oversight. And in art galleries around the region, Oliver's work began to attract attention for its uncanny ability to capture the essence of its subjects. But for Maya and Oliver, the most important changes were the most personal ones. Maya no longer started each day planning escape routes and safe houses. Oliver no longer hid his gift behind invisibility. Together they had discovered that true strength comes not from hiding who you are, but from embracing it fully, and from finding those who will stand beside you, no matter what comes. On the last day of the school year, as students signed yearbooks and made summer plans, Principal Harrison called Maya and Oliver to his office. "I've been approached by several other schools," he told them, asking how we created such a positive change in our culture. "They want to implement similar programs." "What did you tell them?" Oliver asked. Harrison smiled. "I told them the truth, that it started with one person having the courage to stand up for someone else, that sometimes all it takes is a single act of bravery to transform an entire community." Maya thought about that first day in the cafeteria, how differently everything might have turned out if she had simply kept her head down, stayed invisible. How many lives would have remained unchanged, including her own? As she and Oliver left the office, they passed a bulletin board covered with college brochures and future planning materials. For the first time in her life, Maya allowed herself to look at them not as impossible dreams, but as genuine possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" Oliver asked, noticing her expression. "The future," Maya replied. "It's a strange feeling to actually plan for one instead of just surviving until tomorrow." Oliver smiled, putting his arm around her shoulders. "I already know what the future holds." "Another vision?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "No," he said softly, "just a promise. Whatever comes next, we face it together." As they stepped out into the bright summer sunshine, surrounded by classmates who had become friends and allies, Maya Chen, once a girl constantly in motion, always prepared to disappear, felt something she had almost forgotten existed. She felt at home. And in that moment, she understood the most important lesson of all. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage isn't standing up to external threats, but opening yourself to connection, to vulnerability, to love. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stay, to build, to believe in the possibility of something lasting. Sometimes the most unexpected journey begins with the simplest choice, like defending a stranger on your first day of school, or seeing the strength in someone who has forgotten it exists within themselves. Sometimes the most powerful transformation isn't becoming someone new, but finally having the courage to be exactly who you are. What would you do if your entire life changed in just one day? Maya and Oliver had answered that question. They had chosen to embrace the change, to stand their ground, to transform not just themselves, but an entire community. And now they were ready for whatever came next, together. Have you ever felt like Maya or Oliver, caught between hiding who you truly are and finding the courage to stand up for what's right. Their story reminds us that one brave action can change everything, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. As we've seen in this emotional journey, true strength isn't found in isolation, but in connection. Maya learned that running away wasn't the answer, and Oliver discovered that being invisible wasn't his destiny. Together, they found something more powerful than any training or special ability. They found authentic purpose and belonging. What about you? Is there someone in your life who needs someone to stand up for them? Is there a truth you've been hiding that deserves to be shared? Or perhaps you've been waiting for someone to see the real you, just as Oliver and Maya saw each other. This story isn't just entertainment, it's an invitation to be brave, to be seen, to make a difference. Because in the real world, just like at Westridge High, the most profound transformations often begin with the simplest choices. So if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about a time when you stood up for someone else, or when someone stood up for you. Subscribe to see more stories that remind us of our capacity for courage and connection. Remember, sometimes the heroes we need aren't wearing capes or making headlines. Sometimes they're sitting next to us in class, passing us in the hallway, or looking back at us in the mirror, waiting for permission to be brave. What will you choose to do with your one precious life? Will you hide in the shadows, or will you step into the light and show the world who you truly are? The choice, like Maya and Oliver's, is yours, and I believe in you.